Come on, 777. Let's go. Yes,
Welcome, everybody. I am T. Douglas, columnist for Blackout Magazine. I'm here with another episode of Vivid Voices. I have EZ Pizarro here with me. Thank you for joining me. EC, why don't you tell the people a little bit about you and just introduce yourself?
Sure, no problem. I'm EC Pizarro the third. The third is important because I am carrying generations in that name. My father, my grandfather. Shout out to the family. I'm a black man of trans experience, Puerto Rican dad, black mom, from up north, born in New York, raised in Jersey. Been living in the South. I'm a technology experience strategist. Really help people figure out the best ways to use technology to scale their business, scale their social media presence and really get some money back in the pockets of folks that really don't have a lot of means. We can use technology in a lot of different ways to increase our capacity. So I really work with my clients to figure that out for them. So yeah.
Yes, I definitely love hearing that. You know, we love that cha-ching sound. And I noticed your t-shirt, pay black trans folks.
Every
You
time.
know, we love it every
No
time.
question.
So, why don't you tell the people how did your journey in design and technology begin? And also, what inspired you to center your work around LGBTQIA and BIPOC communities?
Sure. So I started in design really. I had a job at FedEx office and I was working in the sign and graphics department. I didn't know that that was something you could go to school for. And one of my coworkers at the time was going to school at Norfolk State for graphic design. And he was like, yo, you're really good. You could go to school for this. And I was living in Virginia at the time. And when I was looking at places to go to school, I was actually looking to move away from where I was living in Hampton Roads area of Virginia. And then, ironically, around the corner from my crib, Art Institute of Virginia Beach opened up. And I went back there, and they said 2.5 years I could get my bachelor's degree. So I did. And then I started working in corporate. What made me center TLGB folks as well as Black and Brown folks was really that I didn't see nobody that looked like me, especially in tech. Tech is a very white male dominated space. There's not a lot of people of color. There's not a lot of Black folks. As soon as I went into corporate, I was one of two Black men in my department, and my department was the most diverse department in the firm. So that told me a lot right there that there was a
Oh,
need and desire to really center the communities that I'm a part of.
oh wow, just two, and that was the most diverse.
Yeah, and it was most diverse because we know a lot of times when we talk about mainstream diversity, they're talking about gender and not about race. So it was the most diverse because the department was majority women. We were one of the very few departments that had all women in management and leadership and senior leadership. So yes, applaud that diversity. But when we talk about the dynamics of me being a Black man in that space, moving stealth because I was not out as trans at my job, it really it caused a certain dynamic. Me being a Black man in corporate coming in with my fitteds and my collar shirt Monday through Friday. So, great experience.
Okay. All right. So, okay. I mean, so basically you just brought the diversity in the room for real.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think there's a level of people that are in community have this misconception about stealth and low disclosure folks that they're moving throughout the world and not still advocating for the community. And that was something that I did. Like I was moving through spaces and no one knew I was trans and was able to advocate still for people, not just at work, but in movement spaces. Because once I moved to DC, I got really into Black movement work with BYP 100. So it was something that was very personal to me because I understood my privilege of being able to move throughout spaces and having the opportunity to disclose my trans experience rather than people kind of picking and prying at my trans experience.
That's dope. So you kind of answered the next question that I was going to ask you, which was like basically moving through the corporate design world and the grassroots community advocacy, like what was that transition like and how you balance those?
Yeah,
Pretty much.
so I would say there was a transition, but there was actually an overlap. As I mentioned earlier, I started with grassroots organizing with BYP 100. I consider that my political home. That's where I really started to learn about a Black queer feminist lens. But I also learned that in that lens, they hadn't done enough work where it actually included trans people in an actual way and not just in theory, but in practice. So there was a lot of overlap there. I was able to really be in that space and challenge a lot of the views that were in that space and really make change. I'm proud to say that they've come a long way with their trans inclusion and not just being from a word mouth standpoint or a theoretical standpoint, but from an actual practice standpoint. So I think that's what really was the crossover. There's overlap, but then there's crossover. So for me, corporate world taught me a lot about systems, about being able to work in production because I did a lot of work with production in my time in corporate around marketing, like large marketing campaigns, as well as corporate events like the conferences you see that corporations throw. So I was able to learn systems, project management, really dealing with a lot of different stakeholders. And with grassroots community, you're always dealing with a lot of different personalities to get to a common goal. So I saw a lot of parallels. I think the one thing with the crossover into grassroots organizing was really being people centered because corporate isn't people centered, right? And I think that was also one of the barriers that I had in corporate is that I was people centered. And they were like, but the bottom line. So I don't think there was much of a transition. I just felt like in between corporate and grassroots organizing work, I was able to show up more authentically as myself outside of like my trans identity, but just who I am as a man and as a human being. I was able to center people and actually talk about feelings and what's actually going on because I realized a lot of people, not that they can't show up or don't want to show up, but life is life and for all of us. And having that open line of communication and people be able to feel safe enough to voice like, hey, I'm really going through it right now is something I actually found power in organizing spaces.
That's dope. That's dope because I feel like a lot of times, when you are balancing those two worlds, there is a lot of crossover, and in business is business, you know, but we're also human. So we be human as well. So
And I've learned
I
with
can understand.
knowing that recognizing that people are human, you have actually better business when you recognize people are human and they're going through life. People want to show up for you more. People actually, because you show that you care about them, they care about the work. So, for me, it was a seamless transition. And I honestly think that if corporations were more people centered and not money hungry, things would go a whole lot better.
I definitely agree with you on that. So also, so you're the founder of 1Z2R Design Studio. Um, so with that, what values guide your creative processes when you're helping clients to shape sustainable and authentic brands?
For me, it's what do they want? A lot of times I see entrepreneurs or small businesses or even nonprofit organizations, they're not really clear on who they want to use their services, who they're reaching out to. They have a very broad umbrella term, well, whoever needs it. Okay, but what are they looking for? What are the questions that they are asking? So you can make sure that your brand is answering those questions up front. What also helps me is figuring out like, is this a product that is truly here to help and serve, or are you just up for a money grab? Um, I feel like a lot of people are up for money grabs, and I pride myself on working with clients like Minister Toya, like Hope Giselle, like Nala Simone Toussaint, like the trans capitalists who, yes, they want to get paid for their labor and for their experience and their knowledge, but they're really looking to put out products that have an impact. And for me, that's really, really important. Artists have to tell the times, you know what I mean? So make sure that the brands that I'm working with are doing impactful work.
And you just keep on answering my questions before I ask them.
I promise I didn't. I promise I didn't. I just
No. It's great. I love it because I was gonna ask you about working with Minister Toya and Seagate Technology and Highlander Center and basically how do you decide which projects you want to take on and which collaborations are the most meaningful to you?
I decide which projects I want to take on how committed the individual or company is to the changes they want to make. A lot of times people are like, "Oh, I had this great idea, so I'm going to do this thing." And I've worked with clients like that, and I've built some really great websites that never saw the light of day. So for me, it was great to do the work and quote get paid for doing the work, but I realized there was no fulfillment for me if that website still wasn't thriving, if the company, the organization, or the individual entrepreneur, the advocate wasn't really tapped into what they said they wanted to do. So that's something that I really hit home with my clients of, hey, do you really want to do this? Because this is going to require commitment. Like you're going to have to post on social media. You are going to have to engage with your mailing list. You're going to have to check your email. Like some people don't want to do small stuff like check their email. So for me, that's something that is really important because you can build something great, but if no one ever sees it, who did you build something great for? And that's not saying that me building the website was something great. It's the idea behind that website. What was the impact that that product or that organization was supposed to make? That's what I'm really invested in. And I want to make sure that the person that is coming or the organization that is coming to me is that they're committed to making that change and really committed to growth at a sustainable rate.
I know that's right. Don't waste my time.
I feel like not just don't waste my time, but also don't waste yours. Like
Right.
there's so many different ways to have income in this day and age using technology. And a website is a foundation to anything that you're doing. So are you committed to that thing that you're doing? Because, not to toot my own horn, but when my clients work with me, they see the return on their investment pretty quickly, right? Minister Toya, I redesigned her website. I had been working with her for a while. I want to say within 6 months of me redesigning her website, she was on Lifetime's Married at First Sight, and they found her through Google searching New Orleans wedding officiant. And she was one of the first ones to pop up because I hooked her up with some killer SEO, which is search engine optimization on her website. So for me, it's also like me knowing like I know what I'm doing here, and I want to make sure that you're ready for somebody to be able to just Google search because your biggest client and the biggest impact is not always your friend or your community. It's usually a complete stranger that's like, hey, I like this. I see what you're doing and I want to work with you. And how do you really reach and connect that stranger? So it's all about impact for me.
Yeah. I definitely hear that. And you talked about like mentorship. And I remember in 2007, you taught at the first Trans Tech Summit. And since then, you've continued mentoring through your work. So, how do you approach mentorship, especially for like young Black and trans creatives?
Yeah, so it was actually 2017. I presented at the first Transect Summit, and I also worked with Angelica with the actual production and setting up the computers that were given away at the summit. So I was kind of knee deep in all of the things. I was running the social media as well. But when it comes to mentorship, the main thing is what does my mentee need, right? I'm not one of those people that mentor a whole lot of people because if what you need doesn't align with what I offer, I feel like I'm not any good to you. A lot of people attach to folks strictly based off of identity. And if I can mentor you through your transition, then sure. But when we're talking about design and we're talking about work, I need to know which route you're going to go. So if you're like, hey, I want to be a career corporate person, I want to have a full-time job, I may not be the best mentor for you because I'm a contractor, freelancer, let's get clients, let's get gigs and not clock in and out, right? So really it's me asking the person who is asking me to mentor like what exactly are you looking for? What type of skills are you looking for your from your mentor? Because I think a lot of times people see what what they consume on social media and they paint their own picture of what it is. And being mentor mentee, you're no longer seeing what the picture is painted, you're seeing the actual paint and while it's being painted. So, for me, it's really asking questions to make sure that I can provide what they're looking for because I've had mentors before and they were, oh, you can climb up the corporate ladder this way. And I never wanted to climb up the corporate ladder. So for me not wanting to climb up the corporate ladder, it really didn't align. And also I've been reached out to since stepping away from Trans Tech as the executive director, I've been reached out to for leadership coaching as well. And again, I ask folks like, what are you trying to do? Because my leadership style is very different than most leadership styles because I lead with empathy. I lead people first. My leadership style is 100% people first because I saw what happened when you lead and you're caring about people, but also being vulnerable about what you're going through and how you're showing up. Because then it levels the playing field of like, we're all human, life is life and for everyone. But if your leadership style, if you're like, no, I'm just about getting the work done at the cost of the people, I can't mentor you because I'm never going to lead you to lead in a way that costs people. So just again, asking the questions of what they need and being honest with myself of my leadership style, my design style, my work style, how I work. I know it's not for everybody. So being honest with myself with that and then seeing with what I have aligns with what they're looking for.
Okay, sounds great. I might have to send some people to you for sure. For sure, for sure. Now let's talk about some challenges. What are some of the biggest challenges you faced as a Black trans entrepreneur, and how have those experiences shaped your leadership style and creative vision?
Whew. A few challenges, especially as someone who was working with community in a creative capacity on very large scale events and visible events, and I was not disclosing my trans experience. It wasn't that I was hiding it, but if you didn't ask, it was I'm not telling you. It's about the work. In 20, I think it was 2019, I worked on the very first National Trans Visibility March in DC as the director of social media and marketing. And one of the challenges I faced was being told I was taking up space that wasn't mine. That was really one of the hugest challenges of, you know, people that knew and that I was in community with, Marissa Miller, Hope Giselle, Angelica Ross, kind of like shielding of like, leave him alone, he's in the right place. But that has shaped my leadership style of advocating for those guys that do not want to tell their trans experience but still want to show up and do the work because the reality is that we always need people to do the work. So my leadership style really leans on if they didn't tell you, they know where they're at, they know the rules here. If they violate the rules, we call them in, but let's leave people alone. If they don't want to share their business, that's not our business to share. Are they here to build community? Are they here to help us build towards liberation? Are they here for our mission? If that is the case, I don't understand why we're asking a bunch of questions because what I've also learned is the reality is where they know or don't know, they're still gonna find something to be upset about. So I want the guys to be able to come in and keep your peace. If you just want to come in and help, hey, come in and help and know that you have an accomplice in me where I'm gonna make sure that nobody asking me questions. Where does God come from? I don't know, but he said he's down for the party. So
Right. Power to the people. He here.
exactly. So let's get to it. Let's get to it.
Right. I definitely agree with you on that. Because even if they don't disclose, even if they weren't trans, they're still an ally. They still here to help. We need accomplices. We need co-accomplices. We need allies. All of that.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree with you on that. So you've received several honors, including the Trans Life Pioneer of Technology and the Marsha P. John Legacy Award. Which recognition stands out to you the most out of all the ones that you received, and why?
All right. It's actually two. Trans Male
Okay.
Advocate of the Year in South Florida, as well as Trailblazer of the Year from the Black Trans Advocacy Conference. The reason why those two stick out is because BTAC was founded by Carter Brown, and the Trans Male Advocate of the Year award is named after Bishop, an ancestor that is from South Florida, Black trans man. Those two men were the first elder Black trans men that I met while I was working in corporate America. I still remember it like it was yesterday. They had reached out to me. Carter had reached out to me, said, "Hey, I saw you live in DC. We're out here for some meetings. Do you want to grab dinner after work?" And I was like, "Of course." We went to a Bus Boys and Poet, and just to
Ooh.
sit down and break bread with elder Black trans men when I'm just kind of navigating corporate. My transition was very I started hormones, I graduated, got my surgery, went into corporate, and I kept my friends, but I wasn't really engulfed in community stuff and didn't realize that I was stealth until people started telling me like, can't no nobody knows what's going on with you. And I was like, oh, okay. I guess I have to disclose if I want them to know about my trans experience. But those two they gave me a possibility model at a time where I didn't know what it looked like to grow older, you
Mhm.
know? So for me to be acknowledged by those two men, Bishop, he's an ancestor, so that was a community award. And then the Trailblazers Award, Carter Brown is the co-founder of Black Trans Advocacy Coalition. So for me, those two was just like, I get Marsha P. Johnson and the legacy of that, but I think for Black trans men, it's powerful that elder Black trans men have not only seen my work, but affirmed my work, um, and said, like, job well done. So for me, those two are the most dearest to my heart.
Black trans man to black trans man, I definitely get that.
It's
It's like it's like when you first go through your transition and you walk past another cis man, they and you get the
I'm
it's
black, you're black, nod in the same space. That
right. So I understand because it's like, yeah, yeah, I get it. So, but looking ahead, what legacy do you hope to leave through your work in tech and design and advocacy? And what advice would you share with the next generation of creators and community builders?
I haven't really thought much about my legacy. I really just want to help guys tell their story, help guys refine their voice, reclaim their stories, because I believe that the stories of Black trans men are so diverse. Um, they are so diverse and they're not cookie cutter at all. And I really believe that storytelling ability and being able to share our experiences not even on it doesn't even have to be social media, but within our own communities there's just so many people that say, quote, "I'm not in community with Black trans men," and I always push back like, not that you know of. Have you cultivated a space or a community where if a guy was a trans man in your space that they felt comfortable enough to share that with you, right? um what was the second part of the question? I'm sorry.
Second part of the question is, what do you want to leave? To other black creatives, young black creatives, and people in community building?
Don't stop creating. Don't stop creating, because the reality is most people know what failure feels like. So you're not afraid of failure. You're afraid of success and what it could possibly be, everything that you've imagined and even more. So don't stop creating. Keep creating, keep creating, keep creating, because not that something's going to stick, but you'll see what resonates not only with yourself but with others.
I love that answer because I work with trans youth, and I'm telling you, they so creative, and I'm always like, you need to do something with that. I don't know what you want to do, but let's find something.
I mean, there's so many different avenues to create. And you say working with youth, that's something that really, I want to say, empowered me to, when I took the step to be like hyper visible with leading Trans Tech Social for those 3 years, was the fact that I had met a youth very early in my transition, a young man by the name of Jasper, and he was 16 at the time. And he was just finding himself, and I didn't really know what to tell him. I told him all the time, like, I went because your aunt offered me tacos and margaritas, and I was a broke college kid. Like, we the same age. I had took a longer route to graduate college, and she was like, "I got you on margaritas and tacos. I need you to come talk to my family member." And realizing that that was probably something I needed at 16, for somebody to say, "Hey, you're not gonna have it figured out, but try things. As long as you're trying things that make you feel good and you're not hurting anybody else in the process, just keep trying things." Because the reality is everybody's trying to figure it out. And for me, working with the youth is the most powerful. I met him at 16. He's now grown, and he's seen all of the work that I'm doing, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, you're so great." And I'm like, "Yeah, but you saw me when I ain't have anything. Like, this is a tooth and nail, a blood, sweat, and tears type situation. Like, this didn't happen overnight. And it took persistence, it took wisdom, it took expression, resilience to like really get in there and to own your own story. So like for real, like for the youth, keep creating and keep owning your narrative, because you know yourself better than anybody else. And the reality is, majority of those adults are still trying to figure out themselves.
That's so true. I'm trying to figure out. I'll be trying to figure out dinner and stuff. No,
Listen,
but tell. So, I mean, I asked you a lot of questions about your work, but we know, work is not just a full person. We want to know more about you as well. So tell me, like, what are some of your hobbies? Like, when you're not working, what do you like to do?
love to listen to music. Music is everything. I have speakers all around the crib so I can listen to music no matter the time. Also, I'm a painter. So this is one of my paintings. I have paintings all throughout my house. So keep in mind, I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about my shit. I like to ride my I like to ride my bicycle. I'm very much a go to the beach, ride my bike. Let's see, what else am I into? Video games. I am a gamer. I'm an Xbox boy. Sorry, PlayStation heads. I'm been with Xbox since the very beginning. Just from a technology standpoint, they're less likely to get hacked than PlayStation, but that's neither here nor there. But I like video
Okay.
games. I like riding my bike, music, art, poetry, storytelling. Uh, Hate to say this is a hobby, but I like going deep with people. I feel like a lot of people stay shallow, very surface level with conversations. And I really like to ask the questions of why. I want to know why people think the way they think, feel the way they feel, because it's all based on our own experiences. And the only way we get a diversity of thought is hearing different experiences. Because I know me being in community and being around other queer and trans folks growing up and seeing their experiences, that broadened my worldview, because I grew up very privileged and very isolated in a way where I didn't realize that that was really happening to folks. And to see it happening to people that I cared about, it really broadened my view around access, around privilege, around resources, around intersectionality, and really get into the meat and potatoes of things. So I've learned not everybody likes to go deep, and I can respect that. I know how to reel it in, but I really enjoy like a deep conversation around a fire pit, the cookout, spades, tables conversations where you're really getting into it, because I feel like that's where the real change happens. Policies without a culture shift are just policies on a piece of
Right.
paper. And those conversations is where you start to see the culture shifts happening, and real equitable change.
I like that. I love a good deep conversation. Yeah. So you said you like music. What type of music is what's on your playlist right now? Give me two good songs that you're listening to right now.
Kenyon Dixon here.
Okay.
Um, what's another song that's a mainstay right now? Right now, it's on the tip of my tongue. It's a gospel song,
Okay.
and of course, it's Kirk Franklin. Looking out for me, looking out
All
for me.
right. Okay. Okay.
Those two are mainstays here because it's a love song and I love R&B music. I'm a lover boy through and through. And it's basically talking about how technology has gotten us so distant with connection. And it's like, no, I want you here. Like FaceTime, text message, phone call, that's cool. But like, can you get here? And looking out for me, just I feel like it's self-explanatory, but I can't explain it any other way. My life has been a roller coaster, and I just be putting my hands up and riding, and ride the wave. And I feel like every step of the way, my ancestors, God, the universe has really been looking out for me.
That is dope. That is dope. So before we wrap up, tell the people where they can catch you at, where they can meet you at, where they can find you at. Give
So
them.
you can find me on Instagram and TikTok, EC the third with periods in the end. So EC period the period third. Instagram and TikTok. You can also go to my website, ecpizarro.com. You can see all of the stuff that I'm working on, my blog posts. You can book me for public speaking. On there, you can also see my firm's website. And I'll be dropping a book soon. So by the time this comes out, I should have my pre-order link live for my ebook, Power, Presence, Ownership, Wisdom, Expression, and Resilience, Overcoming Fear and Anxiety to Find Your Voice. So, it's written for us, by us, and by for us, by us, I mean Black trans men, but I do feel like because of the framework and Black trans men's lived experience that it really can apply to anybody. So that's where you can find me. I'm around.
All right, that is so dope, and I want to thank you for coming out and sharing your time and this space with us. And make sure you go check out every one of those sites, um, and make sure you pay Black trans folks.
Every time. And if you want a
But
shirt, they're on my website too.
I'm gonna
Payblacktrancefolks.com.
go get me one. And no, really, I appreciate you for your time, and thank you,
All
thank you.
right, thank you.
This road, come on, 7, 7, 7. Let's go.